Everybody, this is Jeff Fowler with the Apartment Owners Association, and today we're going to be talking ADUs. There's some new laws and new opportunities, so we're going to explore that today, and just taking what you have and increasing the number of units there to increase your return on investment. So that's an exciting proposition, along with the goal of providing housing and contributing to, well, lessening the housing shortage that's out there, specifically, especially in LA and other densely populated cities. So before we get into that, yeah, lots of forms, updates, and things going on. We have the April 1st deadline where you have to offer a rent reporting service if you have 15 units or more. And we have a white glove service for that. We also have property management software. And so want to encourage you to join in that. And yeah, let's see what else here. So just want to thank ADU Gold and Renovise for making this live stream possible. And ADU Gold, they are your experts. They've done in the ballpark of like 300 ADUs at this point, just in the last few years. And we have the founder of ADU Gold. He is he's done over 1,300, probably more like 1,500 renovations at this point. He has about 35 years of real estate experience, and so really excited to have Seth Gold on. And Seth, it's great to have you with us. And all of you, just to mention that we will be taking questions. If you're watching on AOAUSA.com, there's the little blue help button. You will be able to put your questions in there, then they'll funnel those over to me. And of course on YouTube and Facebook, you can type in your questions and we'll have a question and answer after Seth finishes his presentation. So Mr. ADU, Seth, why don't you take it away, my friend?
Great. Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. Always love being in front of your great members. Definitely you're top of the field in California, and it's a really, really important thing. Jeff and I were just talking before we started about, what's happening in our industry, in my industry specifically with the ADUs, and it's just exciting times because we do have a housing shortage and we have to build more housing, and these new laws just keep ramping and ramping up, offering more and more opportunity. And the bulk of the opportunity really is aimed at the multifamily owners because they have the opportunity to add the most housing. And so I'm really excited to be part of that. And before we get started, I just want to quickly pitch the trade show that's coming up. It's really always one of my very favorite events because it's an opportunity for the multifamily owners out there to go out and be around all of their other fellow multifamily owners. It's just a wonderful thing. And being a small business, multifamily owners, they're typically not around other multifamily owners, and these events are just a really good way for you to meet the other people. But it's being put on by Jeff's organization, so everything there is aimed at things that can help you prosper in this industry, and it's such an important part. And I just hope that the political dialogue continues to at least understand how important small multifamily owners are to our world. I mean, everybody needs housing. And, you people have stepped up the plate and said, I'm going to take on the responsibility of offering and running that housing for you. And without that, I mean, it would not be good. So kudos to all you people that, have stepped up to the plate and do that, and be proud of that. And, the rent control laws and such, seem to be from time to time a challenge and make that more difficult job to do. But That's why you have an organization, so your voices can be heard and politicians can understand better what your situation is. So it's fantastic. And being at this upcoming event is just a way for you to be able to be together with the other people and support what you do. You supply the most important thing, housing for people, and should be very proud of that. Anyway, off of my soapbox. But that's coming up, and I really look forward to seeing you there. We will be there, and I'm working with a company called Renovise now, who is actually the hammer and nails of the equation. And we're going to be talking about them a little bit more in a second. Can I get, how do I get my slideshow up here?
Just go ahead, screen share, and they'll put it up.
I'll just put up share. Okay.
And thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, that's April 16th at the Los Angeles Convention, April 16th at the Los Angeles Convention Center. That's the AOA $1 million trade show that he's talking about. And here we go. We got his slides are up.
Yep.
So we'll go ahead and switch over to that. Thanks for mentioning that, Seth. And you're speaking.
Yes.
You didn't, I don't know that you mentioned that, but
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, of course, I'm going to be there, and I'm very much looking forward to sharing more of the story that we'll be talking about today, and being there to answer questions for you. My enthusiasm for this, as you can tell, is very high. I mean, this is the thing that gets me up every morning, is that I've got an opportunity to spread the word of this opportunity. And ultimately, of course, I'm going to make some money from it. All of the people that build and develop and offer this housing are going to make money from it. But this is one of those really unique things where, as we're making money, a lot of times when you do something to make money, it almost always seems to come at somebody else's expense. This is not like that. This is nothing but good, because not only are we making money, but we're doing something really important socially. We need more housing. And until we produce more housing, the problems associated with not having enough housing just grow. So the only way to fix that, is to build more housing. So that's what we're doing, and we're doing it together, and I'm really excited. So, okay, so there's just real quick background on me. My name is Seth Phillips, also known as Mr. ADU, and I'm originally from Minnesota, you betcha, and you'll still hear a little bit of that in my voice as we talk. But I've lived in the Los Angeles area now for over 38 years. And as Jeff said, I've been in the real estate industry for like 35 years of that. And I really enjoyed being a real estate agent, and everything was going along great until all of a sudden 2007 something happened. The market crashed, and it just seemed like overnight I went from having this great job that I loved, that I made good money at, to being unemployed. So I quickly pivoted and looked around at what I could do until the market hopefully began to heal. So we went into the house flipping business, and we were buying properties at the courthouse steps in Los Angeles. And this wasn't that long ago, but we were buying houses for $120,000, fixing them up, and then selling them for $180,000. Well, anybody in the flipping industry knows that with your buying costs, your selling costs, your holding costs, your rehab costs, with those kind of numbers, that doesn't leave much skin on the bone. So there wasn't much profit there, but there was a little. So we had to learn how to manage more and more projects at the same time, so we could kind of scale that up. And we did. And then as the market did begin to heal, we just started to flip homes in more and more expensive neighborhoods until we got all the way to the top of that particular food chain. And we were just doing ground up new construction in the ultra luxury market in Beverly Hills, Hollywood Hills, Bel Air. And of course, those homes weren't selling for 180,000; they were selling for $10 million. And that was great. And those projects, though, are so complicated, and we're what you call spec builders. So we're having to pay millions of dollars for the dirt, millions of dollars for the construction. And those projects are so complicated that from the time you start to the time you could possibly bring it to market is like 2 years. Well, there's one thing everybody in the real estate industry understands is that it moves in cycles. Sometimes it's moving up, but sometimes it's moving down. And as a spec builder, you don't want to be caught when all of a sudden it turns on you and you've got all those millions of dollars on the table. So we decided to switch gears and basically build what we were going to build before, but on a much smaller scale where we would feel a little bit more comfortable. So we bought a new project in, why is, there we go. We bought a project in Culver City. But we only paid $735 for it. We do the fix and build on it much quicker. And so it would be safer. But during that process, I was with my business partner and we were driving out to look at some more property. And everybody's had one of these experiences in life. Something happened that was really, really, really important. And of course, you always remember that moment that that happened. But when it's really important, you not only remember the thing, but you remember everything about the moment that that came into your life. And I was in the car with my partner. I mean, I remember looking out the window. I remember the dashboard. I remember the sound of his voice because he told me about this new ADU law that had just gone into effect in 2018. And there was something about that that just really grabbed me. And I immediately deep dived into it. And the more I studied it, the more I researched it, the more I just came to believe that this was going to be a very important part of the future of real estate in Los Angeles and California in general. So we switched gears, and instead of knocking down that existing house and building a big new box on it, we just beautifully rehabbed that property. And then in the backyard, we built the very first two-story luxury with rooftop deck ADU in the city of Los Angeles. And it worked, which was really just, of course, the number one goal of it. And so we bought that property for 735,000 and we sold it for 1,805,000. So it worked. And during that process, I learned so much about the whole ADU process and really what that really means in the real world that I completely went out of the spec building business and went full time into the ADU construction services business where I continue to be today, mostly as a consultant. But, you know, one of the most important lessons we learned from that, and something you should all really understand, is the number one question I always got asked and continue to get asked is, how much value does an ADU actually add to your property? And in the end, this is actually a pretty simple question to answer. And you can compare it to this. Much of LA was built in tracts in the early 1900s. And so these homes were all built in, you know, the 1920 to 1950 range, the bulk of them. But they were tract homes. So one builder came in and built whole big chunks of the neighborhood, as tract builders do. So they built a lot of the similar product. And a very similar product back then was much smaller. So 2 bedroom, 1 bath, somewhere around 1,000 square feet was very typical. And it's still typically, that product is still all out there. But along the way, people bought these properties, their families grew. And so as their families grew, they start to face this thing, well, we really need more space. What are we going to do? Well, one thing you could do is, of course, sell your house and buy a bigger house. But some people really just loved where they were. So instead of doing that, they added another bedroom and bath to their house. Well, what does that do to the value of a house? Well, typically that's something we have a lot better understanding in history to back it up. And so the simple formula is whatever your property is worth per square foot in that location is what the value will be added to your property per square foot by adding an ADU in that same location. It's very simple. And this is where it gets exciting. because in the city of Los Angeles right now, the median price per square foot for single family homes, as a for instance, is over $630 a square foot. That's a lot of money. And this is where the fun part is. The cost to build an ADU on the high side, and that's if you're building something very small, because the price goes down as you build bigger, is going to be in about the $300 a square foot range. So if it costs you $300 a square foot to build it, and it produces you a value of over $600 per square foot, that's a great investment. And the reason that that is all true is because you've been given the opportunity to build this income producing asset on free land. Well, how can it be free? Well, it's free because you already own it. So the cost of that land has already been spoken for. So when you're computing your future ROI, which you should always do, of course, on any investment you're going to make, this one gets really simple because all you have to do is compare the cost of the construction versus the equity it'll create, or the cost of construction versus the rent that it'll create. Well, those two things go hand in hand. And on that basis, this investment will always be a home run because the biggest part of development, the biggest part of multifamily is the cost of the dirt. So if you already own the dirt, you don't have to worry about that cost. It's just the cost of construction. So it's always going to work. And now you've got so many more things that you can build. So I'm working, as Jeff said, with a company called Renovise. So this would be how the steps would work. If you're interested, you can contact them directly or me, same thing. And you're going to be speaking with Keenan Knight, who's actually listening and with us in the chat room right now. So if anybody has any chats that you'd like him to answer, he's there, and we'll have the contact information up for them directly. And they're going to come out, and for you, for the AOA people that are here today, and will be at the trade show coming up, they're offering a really incredible special where they will actually come out to your property and do a full feasibility study for you so you can know right away what you can possibly do on your property. And as multifamily owners, I can tell you that's a wide range of opportunities now with all the new laws. And we'll go through some of that in a few seconds. So he's going to offer that to you for free. And you can actually just, here's a Q code you can take a picture of, and it'll take you right there to setting up an appointment. But I totally recommend that you do that now because we are going to be at the trade show, and we've done this before. And we've gotten such a huge turnout of people that it takes weeks and weeks just to meet with all of the people that are going to be coming through. So if you sign up now, you're going to beat the rush, so to speak. So I totally recommend that. And they're going to be able to tell you everything about what you can do for the property. And then once you decide if you would like to move forward to the next step, then they're going to bring multiple contractors to come out and bid on your job. They know that they're bidding against other contractors. It's going to get you the best price. These contractors are all going to be vetted beforehand so that you know you're dealing with reputable, licensed, quality builders. And I can't emphasize how important that is because when I got into the ADU business, I said it was right in the very beginning and it almost happened by chance. But since then, now that of course ADUs have gotten more and more popular, it's just, I laugh every day with the number of kitchen remodelers that suddenly overnight became ADU experts. And they're not. And believe me, there's a lot of nuances to the ADU industry. It's very similar, has to follow a lot of the same guidelines of traditional construction, but there's many, many specific little differences. And our company has done probably 20% of the business that we handle is taking over broken projects. People that started ADUs with other entities, and a year later, they still don't even have their permit. And they don't know why. Well, I know why, because they're working with people on the front end, they're working with our architects, the engineers, whatever, that just they may be great architects and they may have a lot of experience, but they don't have experience in this product. And it is different. And it really needs people that specialize in it. You need that when you go out there. And there's plenty of people out there that now that are qualified. And I'm just happy to, be part of this industry and to be working with Keenan and his company, who I respect very, very much. And you talk to him, and I know you're going to feel the same way. He's a great guy, and he's going to help you out. So, all right. So let's talk about some of the new opportunities. This one is the most amazing of them all, and the newest one really, and is that this is specifically aimed at you multifamily owners. One of the things that I understand now about multifamily owners that I didn't before I started working with Jeff was that the great majority of you guys follow the most important rule to investing, just investing in general, that you can, and that is buy, don't sell. Those are the people that always end up with the most money. It's just no secret. It's been around, been known about for years. But there's no reason why you can't continue to grow your portfolio. And I know many of you continue to want to do that. But in the market that we're in right now, the prices that you have to pay to acquire new properties is so high that the returns are just not feeling quite generous enough to really motivate you to, want to spend that kind of money and take on a new project like that. But now you can basically grow your portfolio just by going back and re-examining your existing portfolio. And I guarantee you, you've got space to build more units right now on your properties that you have. And the government has done everything they could to up the ante virtually every year. And so now we're up to a very simple one with 1211, where when they came up with the first multifamily ADU law, it was pretty simple. Two parts to it. First is any multifamily property, regardless of the zoning on it, had a by right ability to add 2 new ADU units to it. Separate from that, for multifamily owners only, was the rule where you could add 25% more new units based on your existing unit count. Little trickier, but still straightforward. So if you've got a 4-unit building, you can add 25% more units. That's 1 unit. 8 units, 2 units, so forth and so on. There's no limit to the number of units you could potentially add under the 25% conversion rule, but that's the key to it. It's a conversion of existing non-living space. So some examples of that could be a boiler room, a storage room, a rec room, but it also includes conversion of parking. So that's where we really saw a lot of business from that, because a lot of people have tuck under parking. That tuck under parking exists. It's not living space, so it can be converted into units now. But what's changed is that under the new law, 1211, now instead of being able to add 2 by right units, just brand new construction, not conversion, you can now add up to 8. And that's built on a very simple formula. It's 1-to-1 based on your existing unit count. So if you got a duplex, you can add 2. If you got a triplex, you can add 3. All the way up to 8 units, you can add 8 more units by right. Plus, you can still add the conversion units on top of that. So let's do some math here. The ultimate would be, of course, if you just happen to have an 8-unit apartment building, because now you can add 8 more by right. Plus, you could potentially add 2 more under the 25% conversion rule of 25% of your original 8 units. So you could add 10 units to what was an 8-unit project, making it an 18-unit project. So the only thing that requires to be true is you have to have space to build. Well, another beautiful thing about a lot of the multifamilies in Los Angeles, the older ones in particular, is that a lot of them were built with open parking. So every day I look at properties with people, and if you ever want me to, just be on the phone call with you, I've got a super secret tool that I use to accomplish this. It's called Google Maps. And with this miracle, you and I can be on the phone and we can literally walk the backyard of any property on the planet now. And there's some great tools with it. I can measure space. You can do 3D views of it. So you and I can be on the phone. I can be looking at your property online, and I can tell you just pretty much very quickly within a couple minutes of what you could theoretically put on that property. And there's a lot of properties that have open parking. So there's a lot of properties that right now have an opportunity to add many, 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 many more units than ever before. And so that's a big, exciting one. The other one, this is actually the kind of like the newer of the new one. This one actually went into effect a little over a year ago, but they just added a amendment to it, which is SB 1123. So for this discussion, we'll just stick with the original, the bill SB 684. And this one now allows multifamily properties, regardless, once again, of the zoning, to have 10, this could be completely brand new, potentially. 10 units on it, plus each one of those units could have an ADU. So that's 20 units that you can put on the property. This is where this is really magical, though, is that each one of those units can be sold separately. This is a new kind of small lot development. So each one of those properties can be sold as a separate unit, as a townhouse, basically. And there's a very simple formula, and that is if you build a 10-unit apartment building and sell it as a 10-unit apartment building, you'll make good money from doing that. But if you build that exact same 10-unit apartment building and sell each one of those units individually, you would make quite a bit more doing it that way. Typically somewhere in about the 20% to even 30% range of additional profit out of the exact same construction by selling it individually. And now they've made that legal to do. And the most important part of that new law is, and all of these, is that they recognize that time is money. They're finally figuring that out. So when you do one of these new small lot subdivisions, they have to approve it in 60 days. And there are small lot things, developments out there now, not as generous, but just to do the subdivision part of that process under the existing system takes a minimum of a year and a half just to do the subdivision. And of course, you can't really reasonably do the construction until you've got that done. So it's just a really, really long process. So they've sweetened the deal. They've made it so you can add even more units to it, and they've sped up the processes finally. That is exclusively in the city of Los Angeles right now, what I was just talking about. However, these are state laws. So there are other areas of that will allow different versions of this with different restrictions on it. But it is state laws, so it does apply across the state. So there's a lot of great stuff happening there. And then 1123, as I said, is just an amendment to 684, and that added single family lots into it now. So you can put 10 units on a single family lot. And that's definitely going to be a game changer as well. That one, although the law went into effect on the first of this year, this part of it doesn't actually go into effect until July 1st. And the city of Los Angeles has not even published their guidelines on it yet. So we still don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but it's going to be an amazing opportunity. They are not likely going to add the additional ADU for each one of the 10 units. We'll see. But I would be surprised if they do. But just more great opportunities. All right. So back to Renovise, and these are just their processes. So first they're going to put together a digital consultation where you're actually going to be on the phone or on hopefully on a Google Meet or something with them. Then they're going to come out to your property and actually do a feasibility study. And then, as I said, once you kind of dial into what it is you actually want to do, then they're going to have a bunch of contractors come out and actually bid on the work and bid against each other, so you'll know that you're going to be getting the best price. And they're just going to all be there to talk to you in person about this. And I know we're running a little already over. Once I get started talking, I can't stop. But once again, this is the contact information for Renovise, and you can also reach out to me directly anytime if you like. And so I'll just open it up to, and that's my contact information on this slide as well. And we'll be at booth 515. And I believe I speak at 1 o'clock, Jeff, I think it is, on stage 2, I believe. Yes. So I'll be there, and I hope you're all there. I look forward to seeing you there. So we've got time, I think, for a few questions. So let's take them.
Great. Thank you so much. And wow, 1 for 1 is kind of incredible.
Yeah.
You could go from an 8 unit to 16.
Yes,
And
yes.
what was the Senate bill number on that one again?
That's SB 684.
684.
Yeah.
So SB 684. You guys can look that up.
Well, the just the straight 848, that's 1211. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Um yeah, that's 684. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so 684 there.
They're starting to turn into alphabet soup. There's so many of them. I mean, but that's great because it's just more opportunity, more units, more money. And by the way, I'm going to add this in there because this is a more of a tactical thing that we're starting to see. I believe that it makes more financial sense in the market we're in right now, anyway, to build more small units as opposed to less big units. Mm-hmm. I think that product type is a little bit better right now. The smaller units are going to potentially have slightly more turnover to them, but there's a higher demand for them because it's more in the entry level of the pricing, of course, because it's smaller. So that's just a recommendation that we're seeing right now. And because now we've got the opportunity of choosing, because we can do a lot more units, I recommend filling your space with more small units as opposed to less big units. Even though the rent on the bigger units, of course, is going to be more, when you really analyze this down to that local level, I think you're going to find that you're going to have a better return building more small units.
Great. And you've had a lot of experience with this, and you mentioned that 60-day time limit there. Have you experienced that where they didn't approve it and it hit the 60-day limit and you were able to just proceed because there was no action on their part?
Well, no, we haven't had that actually happen to us yet. These are brand new things, so we're just doing our first projects on it now. But I can tell you that the city of Los Angeles is being very supportive of this. So it may not be 60 days, but I have every reason to believe that it will still fall in our more typical timeline because these projects are big and they do take a long time to do, just as all construction does. But from beginning to end, we can do a complete brand new big project, and this we have done, not under the subdivision part of it, but under building the projects of this size and getting them done from start to finish in 14 months.
Now, one thing you mentioned was that about 20% of your business is picking up stuff that people just
Yeah,
couldn't
the broken projects. Yeah.
do. The broken projects, can you tell me what the failure points were on those that you've picked up?
They couldn't get their permit because the people that had put together the plans and the engineering, and then most importantly, the person who does the expediting, and the expediter is the title of the person that physically takes those completed plans and walks them through the city permitting process. And that's not a simple job. I mean, the complexity is very high because everything has to be built to modern building code standards. California in general has some of the most strenuous codes in the country. But there's been more and more discussion on this issue specifically recently because of the rise of the prefab moment and the tiny homes and such. And people are just like confused and go, why does it take so long to build? Why is there so many regulations? What's the holdup? And the holdup is that it's there for a reason, and it's not dumb. It's there because governments want to make sure that housing that people are going to be living in is going to be safe and it's going to last. I mean, we all want that same thing. And the only way to do that is to come up with building codes that specifically address the issues for that area. And in California, we've got one very important issue: earthquakes. So we've got to make sure that anything that we're building is going to be as earthquake resistant as possible. Guess what? We have another big natural disaster thing that we should have had much higher on our worry list: fires. Now we're finally starting to get our heads wrapped around this. And yes, we can build very, very fire resistant housing. It's not that complicated to do. The technology is already there. And believe me, there's going to be a lot of changes happening in the building codes here now that are going to require that. And it should have been there before, but it will be. But these are all the kind of things that exist in that permitting process that, unless you've got professionals that's what they do, and they've done it time and time again, that's where the failure point is going to be. And the whole ADU thing brought with it a whole bunch of nuances to it. And so the person that just walked through that permit before, all of a sudden he's sitting in front of the plan reviewer and they go, no, 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 you can't do this. You got to change that. And they go, okay, you got to go back and make the changes. Now he's got to ask the person to make the change that didn't know that either. And so everything just gets bogged down in that process of people just not being up to date on this specific part of the process.
Have you had any clients that have requested a prefabricated home as an ADU?
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. And that's where this whole permitting process has kind of gotten into the spotlight again, because that's one of the big problems with prefab, is that the prefab world is the future of housing. No question about it. I'm so a proponent of it. I can't wait because not too far up the road, I'll be sitting with a customer. We'll have our little tablet out, and it'll be like you're at the car dealer. We'll pull up the different models, pull up the different finishes. You just point, 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 click, click, click. And 3 months later, that thing will magically appear in your backyard. That's there. The technology exists. It will happen. But here's one of the problems that's a challenge. That's great, but what's the building and safety going to do? How are they going to ensure that that project and that property fits all of their regulations? Well, that's the challenge. I mean, they could like go in and cut holes in the walls to look inside to see what's going on in there, but obviously that's a problem. So they've got to figure out how to fit this whole new prefab system into existing stick built systems that have existed since the beginning of time. And then you've also got a very intracted bureaucracy that's been doing it the same way since the beginning of time. So that's one of the challenges. Another challenge with prefab is that this is going to get solved, and there's already solutions to it, is the typical prefab product right now is built as what I call the big box version of it, where they build the whole unit in the factory just like they were going to be building it on site. That's great. They get the efficiency of the mass production, blah, 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 blah. But here's where the first big challenge is. Now that it's finished, you have to pick it up and put it on a truck and transport it to the home site or job site. Well, the obvious problem there is that it has to be built to a dimension that fits on the truck that can legally drive on the road. That dimension is 8.5 feet by 12 feet by 30 feet. So you got this long, skinny box that's not very tall. So that's a huge design constraint. So the solution is, and there's already companies that are doing this, you build the same thing in the factory, but you build it in panels. And then you flat pack the panels, you transport it. It can be any dimension you want because it's just more panels. And then they just assemble the panels on site like a giant Lego set. And voila, you've got your property, your project done. That's the real solution. There's companies that are already doing it. They're working their way with trying to get the governments and the permitting agencies to understand the product so that this can work. And it's all a work in process, but you can buy right now prefab ADU and they'll come out and you'll end up with that same product on your property that we would do stick built. Here's the problem with, and as it stands right now, it's going to be more expensive and it's not going to save virtually any time. That's just the reality of it. It won't stay that way, but for the right now, and that's why I continue to promote the stick build version of this, because if I'm a customer, I'd look at all of these things through my eyes. If I was a customer, what would I want? I want the same thing all customers want. I want the best product at the best price. For the right now, that continues to be stick built. And so that's what we're continuing to offer. But if you want to just do it with prefab, we've got resources for that too.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I think Keenan's been answering questions in the chat, so we don't have questions. Anyway, I think this was great information. Really, really appreciate it, and looking forward to having you speak at the trade show. And yeah, we're gonna have over 20 speakers. There's gonna be probably 175 different companies that are there, and it will be incredible. If you've never been an AOA member, we'll give you a free 6-month membership if you show up, and we raffle off the 5-day cruises for 2 at every single one of the keynote seminars. And so it should be awesome. Take a look at it. Go to aoausa.com and find out more information about it. And again, thank you, Seth, so much. We appreciate you.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. And I look forward to seeing all of you at the trade show coming up, and let's meet and talk. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.